Okay. All right. It is 7 o'clock on January the 26th, and this is the Los Osos Community Advisory Meeting. And can we start with roll call?
Absolutely. Okay, so for District 1, Patrick McGibney.
Here.
Andrea Luker.
Here.
District 2, Kristen Horowitz is absent. Tom Cross, that's me, is here. District 3, Larry Bender.
Present.
And Larry Rao.
He's here. He's muted.
All right. District 4, Deborah Howe.
Present.
And John Lind.
John, you're muted.
I'm here.
All right.
Okay.
Larry
And-
Rose here.
All right. And now for at-large supervisor appointees, Jim Stanfill. Has he made it in yet?
No.
All right. And Trish Bartel.
Present. Present.
All right.
All right. Okay, we're going to start with the chairperson announcements, and I just wanted to start with, it's been a pretty devastating time here in Los Osos with all of the storm damage, and we will be discussing the storm damage throughout the meeting tonight. But I did want to let everyone know that LOCAC, and someone is whistling, or so LOCAC held a full day meeting. I wonder who that is. Held a full day meeting to determine our strategic plan. And I wanted to kind of go over the first 5 slides of really what we came up with. So Tom, if you could bring those up.
Yes, just give me one moment. All right, can everyone see?
Yes.
Fantastic.
So we have the goals of our session. What is LOCAC for? So we came up with those 4 points: create space to share, discuss, and collectively agree on internal organizational practices, develop understanding on ways and means to collectively support Los Osos community, be a strong, influential, and respected organization that community and agencies look to for support and guidance, and build, how come I can't say that word tonight?
Camaraderie.
Yes, and trust within the group. Perfect. Okay. Next slide is we have our mission statement. Our new mission statement is provide leadership and collaboration between the Los Osos community, organizations, and public agencies. LOCAC represents and engages with the community to provide pathways for advocacy and advisement. And then we have 5 that are core values: communication, transparency, accountability, and respect for diverse thoughts and opinions. And we came up with 5 goals. And the 5 goals are to hold executive committee meetings, and that will be to do things such as policies, procedures, bylaws that we don't have time for in the regular meetings. Develop clear protocols for communication, inform and help drive the habitat conservation plan, increase engagement of community with LOCAC, and be informed about the water supply in Los Osos. There's going to be a full deck of these slides that kind of go in detail with some timelines for our goals and how we came up with them, and we will be putting that on the website. Also want everyone to know that we have revised bylaws and policies and procedures, and the public can review those. They will be on the website, and we are going to vote as a council on those at our next meeting, which is February in 2023. So if you have any concerns or questions, go ahead and send them to our website. So before we get into council member announcements, I would like Andrea and Tom talk about the meetings they're going to on the storm damage.
Tom, you want to start off?
Sure. I'm more of like, I'm part of the newly formed Los Osos Emergency Coalition that is intended to organize the needs of those affected and organize volunteers to help those who are affected in the most efficient way. I'm more of a grunt, and I think Andrea is the big mastermind behind this after Annette is stepping back a little bit. So Andrea, do you mind telling us a little bit more about what's going on?
No, I'll just be brief. And I think the point is to just continue the great work that has already been done in this community by a number of volunteers working up on Vista Court and also helping out people on Pine Street, as well as other places. So we're in the very beginning stages, but the point is to be able to collect the needs in one place of the community and the offers to those needs in one spot. So we're working on a page. Hopefully it's going to be housed, I think, on the, we're not sure exactly where the page is going to be housed, but we do, we're getting a phone number and we're getting an email address. So there's one point, certainly not taking over or dismissing any of the work that's been done, but just trying to continue it on, maybe in a little bit more formalized manner. So I think at this point, that's about the extent of it. We met on Tuesday. We're going to meet again next week, and we'll be getting more information out and making sure that information gets to the people that need to know about it. So don't mean to be vague, but we're just in the preliminary stages.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other council member announcements at this time? Okay, all right. I do see Corey Hahn. Do you have your hand up? Oh, no, that was just my mark. Okay, never mind. County and local reports. The sheriff's report, I see that you are here. Oh, and I don't know how to pronounce your name. Alouette? Where did you go? Here you are. I've just asked you to unmute.
Hey, gotcha. Sorry about that.
And how do you pronounce your name?
It's Elliot Coys.
Elliot. Okay.
Sergeant with the Sheriff's Office. Apologize, I had to switch to my phone, so my quality is not as good. My iPad was acting up today.
Losing you.
You guys saw a huge community turnout. That was really cool. So a lot of people were helping clean up the cul-de-sac in the neighborhood. It was really good to see that. So let's see, for the last month in December, so we had a little uptick in calls from the prior year. It looks like in Los Osos we had 72 total calls, whereas we had 60 the year prior. We had 2 assault or battery calls, 41 general disturbance calls, 3 burglaries, 6 thefts, 5 vandalisms, 3 mail thefts, 1 phone scam, 17 suspicious circumstances, 75 proactive enforcement stops, and 29 preventative patrol activity, which could be foot patrol, anything of that nature. And that's all I have for statistics. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Any questions from council members?
Yes, I have a question. A few nights ago, we heard a gunshot, loud gunshot. And I know the sheriff was patrolling to try to find out what it was all about. I want to say it was maybe Tuesday evening about dusk. Do you know anything about that?
I wasn't working Tuesday and I didn't hear anything about it in briefing, so I'm guessing it wasn't likely a confirmed gunshot.
Okay.
I can look into it and my email address is just ecoys, so ECOYES at the county email, which is co.slo.ca.us. If you want to shoot me an email, I can definitely check into it. I'll be happy to get your response.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Any questions from the community? Okay, Sergeant Elliott, you are free to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Highway Patrol report, Captain Klingenberg. And I know I saw you two right there. You've been asked to unmute.
I'm here, just navigating the unmute button there. Good evening, everyone. For the month of December for Los Osos, we made one DUI arrest not involving a collision. We made 4 DUI arrests that did involve collisions. One of those DUI collisions was a felony, causing some fairly significant injuries to the person in the victim's vehicle. And then we had 9 collisions not involving DUI driver. One of those collisions involved a complaint of pain. The other 8 collisions did not involve injuries at all. That is a general overview of what happened for the month of December. And I am available for questions if you have anything for me or concerns.
Any questions from the council? Questions from the community? All right. You are free to go tonight. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your service. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you. Trish, can I just take a moment?
Sure.
First of all, I want to apologize to Andrea for that interruption, but Jim Stanfield is not able to get on. He needs the link. Tom, could you send him the link to the meeting?
Sent it to him.
Oh, did you? Okay, yeah.
Just
'cause
now.
He was having trouble. So I apologize, but trying to get that guy on the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. County staff report, Corey Hahn from the planning department.
Hi everyone, Corey here. Big news to share is that we are gearing up to submit the LOHCP to the service next month. That should be going, the turnaround time for them to review that is around 2 months. So once we submit, if I hear anything, I'll be sure to update the group. The other thing is starting next month, one of my colleagues, Claire Momberger, will be joining us. She's gonna start transitioning into being your new liaison. I'll still be I'll still be attending during the transition period. But you know, we're gearing up to get her more involved in the community, as she's the point person that's working on all things water with Los Osos. So it's good to start inserting her into these conversations with the community.
Okay. Thank you. And what was her name again?
Claire Momberger.
Okay. And you said that HCP is going to be submitted to who? And within the next,
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Wow.
okay, great.
Wow.
And then does it go to the Board of Supervisors, or does it just, can they just approve it?
So the plan went to the board and the board approved it as to form.
Okay.
So there may be changes through the services process, like there might be conditions of approval, things like that will go along with the hopefully quick approval of the HCP.
Okay.
And then there will be a implementation package that basically will go to the board for direction from the board on how to implement the HCP, the funding request that goes along with that, and staffing requests.
Okay, that's great information because it's been a long time. So it'll be implementation process, financing process, and personnel. Okay. All right, good. We've been waiting for that news for a long time. I appreciate that. Anything else that you would like to cover, Corey?
That's it from me, and
Okay.
I'm there for any question.
Patrick, you have your hand up?
Thank you. Corey, so is this a draft that is going out and will the community get a chance to review it?
It is substantially the same as what went before the board as part of the LOCP item. So it's yeah, substantially the same. The only thing is we update some of the numbers to match up with the more recent data with land costs and all of that, so that the mitigation fees are more appropriate for 2022. Well, coming into 2023, I should say.
Okay, so will the community have a chance to review it and make comments?
No, the commenting period already ended before it even went to the board.
Right, but there's been some changes made though, you're saying.
Right, they're unsubstantial. They're clarifications and updates to the numbers to keep up with inflation. So they're not substantial changes.
Okay, thank you.
Andrea.
Hi, Corey. Thanks for the great news. With your crystal ball in hand, do you really think that 2 months is a maybe even an accurate estimate? I know that you're not in charge of that, but I'm just curious if you think that's really going to happen.
I am very confident with that. We've been working very closely with the service this past year. They've had questions here and there about, clarify this, clarify that, and we work with them all year long, really closely. So we are very confident that this will go within that 2 month time frame.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Fantastic news. Fantastic news. I love the 2 months. That's so great. Okay,
course,
Ian.
I could always be wrong, but I'm very optimistic about this.
Okay, perfect. John, you have your hand up.
Yes, two questions for Corey regarding the HCP. Number one, why did it break loose right now, in your opinion? And number two, where does it go if the Fish and Wildlife approves it? Where does it go from there?
What do you mean by break loose?
Well, it didn't happen until you just announced it today.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So throughout the past year, there's been a lot of questions that came from the service that we had to clarify to make sure that they're on board with everything. So we are at a point where we've addressed pretty much all their questions and concerns. And so that's why we're at this point where we can submit.
Okay.
Where it goes from here, as I mentioned earlier, if the HDP is approved in 2 months, or no, yeah, about 2.5 months from now, because we'll be submitting in February, we will be taking a package before the Board of Supervisors for them to give us direction on exactly how to implement the HDP, because the HDP has so many different options on how to implement it, and what goes first, and there's also the request for funding, the request for staffing to implement the HDP. So that's the next step.
That's all at the county level.
Correct. That's the county level.
And is there any other agency that needs to weigh in until this becomes the law of the land?
No, this is this is a permit that we're requesting between the counties requesting from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So it's our plan. It's the county's plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions from council? Any questions from the community? No. All right, Corey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and great news about the HCP.
Thank you.
Supervisor report. Bruce Gibson, how are you tonight? Let's see if we can unmute you. You've been asked to unmute.
There we go. I didn't want to make ridiculous faces, but I appreciate the unmute. I am excellent. Just back from an all-day meeting in Sacramento, which was really productive. I think some of you know I'm very active in our California State Association of Counties, what we fondly call CSAC. It's all 58 counties, and I work and interact with supervisors from all over the state as the first vice president of that organization. And we had our executive committee meeting today in Sacramento and talked a lot about homelessness. We're making a major push to get the state and the cities and the counties all together on one page to put together a system that's actually going to be effective. The lack of coordination and the patchwork nature of programs that are meant to help with homelessness is just extraordinary. It's ridiculously complicated and as such dysfunctional. And so we're trying to do something bold here. And we had a great discussion of that. That's going to be part of the budget, part of the legislative process going forward in this ledge session. So very, very exciting what possibilities lie out there. Let me bring it back a little closer to home. The storm damage. I was, first of all, stunned at the damage done, but second of all, incredibly impressed at the response of the community members to help their neighbors. I can't tell you how that touched me to see folks, out there with shovels and taking care of each other. Major response effort, and so glad to hear that continues. I'm not glad, but not surprised. The matter of recovery, the formal transition to recovery, where funding of one sort or another is available to those who have suffered loss in the community, is a complicated one involving a whole variety of agencies. And I will tell you, it took a little bit of time to get a coordinated approach and message. But with the declaration of major disaster that occurred a few days ago, with our county being added to it, FEMA is now fully engaged. And they have set up, as I think you all know, a disaster recovery center, which is a one-stop shop down in San Luis Obispo, where people can come in, explain what's going on, and be guided, through whatever agencies, subdivisions of the county, or whatever it is that can help them. If you need any help having folks navigate it, I've been in touch with a number of the community organizers, especially in the Vista Court area. Glad to hear there may be a more, how should we say, formalized approach to that. And our office would love to get that contact information and be ready to interact with you all when that's up and running. A quick scan of the screen shows that Blake is not with us tonight. He had a personal matter. I gave him the night off, which I don't have to reconsider that. That wasn't the best move, but he will be at his normal station tomorrow and Monday. And you know how to contact him, and we're happy to interact. So we're going to be doing a number of things. The recovery process will stretch into the future. Interesting to me that if one were to sort of fly over this county, you might think, well, it doesn't look like it's so bad. And in general, maybe that's true, but in those areas where people suffered damage, they suffered a lot. And so we're going to be at this for a while. We're going to be at it, repairing our infrastructure, roads, bridges, a whole bunch of stuff that has been, the technical term is messed up with the storm. And so that's going to be on our plate for a while. The second thing I wanted to touch on is, I can touch on the habitat conservation plan. Where we are is in the final formalities of getting the actual permit signed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And part of that is a financial contribution that the county needs to make to front load the activities. So the idea of a habitat conservation plan is when activities take place within the area defined as the urban area of Los Osos, for instance, the establishment of the long-awaited dog park, or the addition to a house, or eventually the building of a new house, that creates impact to endangered species, critical habitat. That's going to be mitigated with a fee paid into a fund that's going to do good things in the designated lands that are largely up the hill and south of the community. The nature of that whole program is such that the Fish and Wildlife Service expects there to be money fronted to that, so that we can actually get going on the improvement of habitats even before we start collecting a lot of fees. So that's where we are right now, is trying to figure out the financial aspects of this. I think Corey's estimate of a couple months is as good as it gets, because it really is down to the formalities of the service. What remains, though, is to see what happens at the board, and we have yet to completely figure out exactly how we're gonna work the finances on this. But I don't think that that's not a deal breaker in any way, shape, or form. We also had a inquiry from your chair regarding our Title 29 retrofit analysis. That is lagging a bit. It took much longer to gather the basic information, the data that would be the analysis of exactly what the impacts of the retrofit program are. That's in process now. I don't remember that I got a fixed date, but I'm thinking that's at least a couple to 3 months, maybe mid, I think mid part of this year before we're going to see that. The board held its first regular meeting of the year Tuesday past, and quite a lot was discussed, and quite a lot was of planning action, I guess you might describe it. Obviously, one of the big issues in Los Osos is who would you turn to for representation at the Board of Supervisors. I've always maintained, and I continue to do, I am the supervisor representing Los Osos. I'm happy to do that. We have a long history together, and no other supervisor is interested. So there's that. But
Come on, we're nice people.
you are wonderful people, and related to that, obviously the radical change in the supervisor's district's boundaries is what lands you in the category of an orphaned community. Although we're going to phase that out. You're not orphaned anymore. You got, I'm not going to go into foster parent and all that kind of stuff. So I'm here for you. Blake is here for you. Our efforts now span an incredible physical range of the county, and my work with the state association is another piece of the menu right now. So we would only ask a certain patience in our response. We will respond, and we will respond. Blake, of course, prides himself in particular of quick response, but we will absolutely continue to represent Los Osos as we have. The question, there's bigger questions. You probably saw the statement from the county. The new board majority is interested in settling the lawsuit, that we can get to a negotiated framework for fixing this. The details of that are a long way off, but just the main message from Tuesday is that this board is not going to continue to fight this lawsuit in court. We're going to try to figure out a path by which it gets resolved, and we'll see. Just stay tuned to see exactly where and how that happens. Another thing we talked about on Tuesday was assignments to committees. And so, consistent with my continued representation of Los Osos, I will remain on the Basin Management Committee and the National Estuary Committee, et cetera, et cetera. So, that nothing really changes in that. We also talked about the upcoming county budget, which faces about a $10 million, an $8 to $12 million deficit of projected expenses over projected revenue. We've got to figure out how to put a balanced budget together while at the same time pursuing a number of things that are extremely important, homelessness being singularly at the top of the list, along with component subparts of that effort, which are behavioral health, mental health, and addiction treatment, as a general category, and housing. And those became our top tier priorities for fiscal year 23-24. We have other things that, yes, we know we have to work on, which is the storm damage recovery, the water resiliency, and economic development. We call those second tier priorities within this budget. But, the thing to note is when we identify priorities, as I said at the board on Tuesday, that really is an expression of the fact of this is in a cut year. We're facing a cut to our budget. There are certain things that we may augment, that we need to augment, is, for instance, spending on homelessness, spending on behavioral health, work on housing. So that's what it means to be prioritized. All the other things the county does continue. So all our work on the roads continues, our work on parks continues, all as best we can. But in a cut year, we're not going to be able to go crazy and do a whole lot of new investments. We try to make do with what we can. We're looking forward to seeing how we come out of this. You may also have heard conversation and reports in the press of a series of actions that this board will take to essentially undo a number of decisions that the previous board majority made that we feel are significantly detrimental to the county. There's the ag planting ordinance, the decision to leave the integrated waste management, our solid waste authority, essentially the raising of campaign donation limits, and the decision for the unincorporated areas to join a community choice energy program. That we are the only, all 7 cities have joined community choice, the Central Coast Community Energy. Number of benefits to that that you may well be aware of. And then Supervisor Paulding in particular wants to look at our revenue and what would be the options of increasing revenue in strategic ways in order to accomplish our desired goals. So those things we were not on our agenda. We took them up under our budget priorities. They will have budgetary impacts of unknown amount right now, but we will be scheduling a series of agenda items as we go forward to do that. We got to look at the timing, whether there's a time sensitivity to this. The first and foremost one is this planting ordinance, which really pertains to the Paso Robles groundwater basin, which we are scheduling action on our next regular meeting, which is February 7th. In order to do that, we need to do some noticing. So we're actually having a special meeting on Sunday at 10 a.m. If you choose not to go to church, you can come on by. It'll be a short meeting to issue the formal notice for this and do one other procedural item. And so far as we can tell, that's a first in San Luis Obispo County, a Sunday meeting. So, and that just scratches the surface. So there's tons of stuff going on, and I would be happy to take your questions.
Okay. Any questions from council? Patrick?
Yes, thank you, Bruce. I just want to congratulate you on such a wonderful meeting on Tuesday and all that you did get accomplished there. One thing that I was a little concerned about, or maybe you could just elaborate on, is I think one of the things that was cut, it was the road maintenance that Debbie Arnold had been working on for a long time. I'm not really sure really what that is going to cover, but with all the damage that we've had done with our roads because of this last, all the rains that we've had, could you just comment on what that means and how things are going to move forward?
Yeah, let's split it into 2 parts. So anything to do with storm damage is absolutely a priority. And the way by which we and we're absolutely working on it. We got to get through the rest of this rainy season, but we will be developing plans to replace bridges, rebuild roads, shore up slip outs, do all those things. That's absolutely a priority. That is going to be largely funded by the federal government through FEMA. And the matter of budget priorities is really where our board spends our regular discretionary funds that come from what we call our general fund. The normal road maintenance program is not going to suffer any cuts. Supervisor Arnold had said she wanted to make roads a priority over higher priority than things like mental health and homeless services. And it's been on our priority list for years. But the reality is that we continue to do road maintenance. We just haven't been able to prioritize expanding it because we have all this other stuff to do. The condition of our roads is hanging in there, and the most well-traveled roads actually have a very high what we call pavement condition indexes. Our most traveled roads are in really quite decent shape. The way roads maintenance is funded is that the county has to expend a certain amount of money in order to pull down a larger amount of money from the state. And so in this kind of budget, we will absolutely spend our, what's required. And that'll get us a whole bunch more of state funding. And we will go out and we will continue to keep our roads in as good a shape as we can within that. What we can't afford in a cut year is to increase beyond the minimum that we need to spend to draw down the state budget. And that's been the case for the last 4 or 5 years. So to have had that on as a budget priority was actually a little misleading. So I hope that clarifies it. Storm damage is storm damage. We've got to get it fixed, and we're going to do that. We've got to work with the feds, and that's a grueling process of patience and paperwork. So I hope that clarifies where we are on that.
Very much so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Deborah, you're next.
Bruce, so much of your report makes me very, very, very happy.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah, and I just want to say that hopefully the communities of Estero Bay, Los Osos, Morro Bay, Cayugas, that we are once again in the same district. It really makes sense on all levels. And so we look forward to, and I just have to say, thank goodness the county is no longer going to continue to spend money on defending that lawsuit. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. I agree with you.
Andrea.
Bruce, when you were talking about the HCP, you made a comment about I think this is what you said, the mitigation money would go to good things in areas up the hill and to the south. Can you explain or give me an example what that means? So
there's a big piece of property that's just above Highland Drive that's owned by California Fish and Wildlife Department. I forget what it's called. It has a formal name. It might be the Los Osos Ecological Preserve. I'm not sure. You're probably familiar with it. It's got hiking trails going through it. Those trails. Has had some equestrian use over the course of time, unauthorized, because Fish and Wildlife is not formally permitting horses there. But what's happened is that it has had some erosion. It has invasive species in it, but Fish and Wildlife has not had budget to do any restoration. So the idea is that the impact fees gathered from work inside Los Osos would be spent on a variety of projects that would restore the habitat and the damage done on that property.
Gotcha. Very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah.
John Lind.
Yes, thank you. Bruce, first of all, we want to thank you as a tree and landscape group for your help in helping us get permission from the Park Service to do a small tree planting in the past week. And also your office helped fund the project, and we really appreciate that. And
My pleasure. My pleasure.
congratulations on your win at the ballot box.
My double-digit win.
Yeah. Bruce, my other question regarding homelessness is that Palisades continues to have some homeless population there. And what is the plan there? Are we still trying to expand the area over there on Oklahoma or nearby to accommodate more folks?
Yeah, I think the Oklahoma site is probably at the site as big as it's going to get. There's only so much land over there. And I'm told that it's actually, so far as anybody knows, the biggest safe parking program in the whole country. This is not typically how safe parking is run. And for good or bad, we created a unique facility over there. We have a regional plan to address homelessness that was worked out, endorsed unanimously by our board in the last part of last year. And it talks about providing, we have to provide shelter for the folks who are, I'm on Palisades every now and again, and I know there's probably half a dozen vehicles that seem to be there on any given time that I'm there. Much different than it was at the height, but I understand the concerns with them. But we have a series of programs that have been very well thought out with accountability standards to create various kinds of shelter, various kinds of housing, including what we call supportive housing, which is housing plus services, transitional housing, which is housing plus different services that get folks into permanent housing. There's a whole spectrum of housing needs. So what we've got to work on are the services, mostly behavioral health, but other services as well, and the housing. And where we are right now is making a push in the upcoming budget to figure out roles and responsibilities. This is a deal that we've cooked up between the county and 7 cities. It's a general framework. We now need to get specific commitments to do things, both commitments to programs and then the budgetary commitments to make those programs work. And if you look at how this stuff is funded, it is the proverbial Gordian knot. This is what we were talking about in Sacramento today. There's one big pot of money and a dozen or more smaller that are funneled through a set of agencies that are, some are government and some are nonprofit, that come down and fund a series of programs. And the complications of trying to braid this money stream together and follow all the rules for all the different programs just ties us up. So we need to work regionally, and we need to, the thing we are pitching at the state level is to get defined roles and responsibilities for the state, the counties, and the cities, so we can all work together to get this done. And that's how we're going to create more shelter space that's going to be able to enforce the no parking on Palisades to move folks. There is a waiting list at Kansas Avenue. They keep moving a few folks in, and folks move off of Kansas into permanent housing. Capslow, which runs it, has been documenting that, not as fast as anybody would like, but we're making a little progress.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions from council? Any questions from the community? All right.
Madam Chair,
Right, Secretary.
with your indulgence, I'm gonna log off. I'm in Santa Barbara all day tomorrow, but you know where to find us, and we'll be
I
looking forward
do.
to interacting again. So
All right, thank
take
you.
care.
Bruce.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bruce.
You bet.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, let's go to CSD report. Ron Munns, I saw that you're here.
Chuck,
Oh, Chuck, okay,
Chuck's gonna do it?
they're
Chuck.
both here.
okay. Chuck, I have asked you to unmute. And Ron,
I've unmuted. Okay. I wanted to thank Bruce actually before he ducked out. That was a quite lengthy report on the homelessness issue, which does not go away. And I appreciate the attention to that and the HCP, because I have letters in my file from at least 15 years ago, talking about a resolution of that issue. If we're that close, wonderful. That'd be great. On to the CSD business. I'll talk about the kind of lost news now. We've got a consultant performing a comprehensive assessment of our fire station 15. It was built in the 60s and 70s, and it's showing signs of wear and tear. And the assessment will feed into an emergency services strategic plan, which will look at the future of the needs in the community and where we go from here. That's just part of what we're doing. The CSD staff and a LOCAC representative are working on a South Bay climate adaptation plan with SLOCOG. You probably noticed that we're kind of isolated when it rains a lot. And that's not a good thing. So hopefully more to come from that. And the program Seawell up above the Van Bearden building there, Bayview Heights, the well is drilled, the water testing came back, it's good quality. We're planning and hope to construct the water transmission line by May, and that'll carry the water down to the existing pipeline at Napomo Street. So on to storm damage issues, which is probably the main concern. January 9th, about 4:30, the northeast wall of the Cabrillo Stormwater Basin breached, sending a lot of water down into the Vista de Oro neighborhood. There were probably 19 homes. Well, there were 19 homes that sustained damage, some of them red tagged. Serious business. The cause of the breach is being investigated by a third-party investigator and consultants hired by the CSD. And I don't have a time frame for that. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll know more. We immediately brought in roll-off containers, porta potties, skip loaders, everything we can do to help the community there. That's the immediate need for now. The volunteers, you can't say enough about the community of Los Osos. Without being asked, people just started showing up, and within 10 days, there were 450 cubic yards of sand shoveled out of people's homes and backyards. That's 45 truckloads, big dump truckloads, all done by shovels and wheelbarrows. And what a community that we have. There were churches from San Luis Obispo who sent teams out. There was one day I'd like to reflect on in particular. I went looking for a wheelbarrow because there was a group of teens in a yard that were wanting to shovel sand. They needed the wheelbarrow, and the wheelbarrow I tried to borrow was from the Conservation Corps. And they kind of like to keep their gear and their team together. So they didn't just send a wheelbarrow, they sent their whole team. But by the time they got to the yard, the kids from San Luis Obispo had found wheelbarrows, and they were working so hard that the Conservation Corps stepped aside and said, "You don't need us here." Conservation Corps did a great job helping us out, and so many volunteers did. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Donations of food and water from the community. I can't even begin to talk about Ralph's and Brightside and Abe at Great Belief and everybody. I don't even have all the names. It's amazing when all that happens. It's just amazing. We had to move quickly to design and build a temporary fix to make sure that there was no more water coming out of that basin onto the community. And that work was completed in about 4 days, just in front of the storm on the next weekend, January 14th, which turned out to be a knuckle rider in itself. That's why the K-rail is up there on Petro Road, and it'll probably stay there through the rainy season. We're working on emergency repairs in the area of the breach. We should start in the next couple of weeks, but we're waiting for that geotechnical report before we really can get started. Relief agencies, as you've heard, Bruce mentioned, they all visited the neighborhood, FEMA, Cal OES. There's the Disaster Information Center set up at the Vets Hall on Grand Avenue. And from first word I'm getting from people there, it's incredible help. You lost your driver's license, come get it replaced for free. You lost your birth certificate, come get it replaced for free. You need gift cards for groceries, FEMA's there. See, the Red Cross is there. There are agencies there providing relief right now. And along with that, I got to hand out a shout out to the People Helping People organization and nonprofit here in town. They have been involved since the beginning, and wonderful what they're doing. And there's a GoFundMe out there. The community is responding. That is just beautiful. You've heard that there's an effort to create a centralized point of contact for the impacted property owners. A part of what they needed was what was given at the Vet Center in Grand Avenue is contact with all of the agencies that can provide help at one point. And we couldn't bring that right here to Los Osos, but it's in San Luis Obispo handling the whole county because there were other places affected too. And by the way, I want to say people on Pine Street and other places beside Vista Court, we haven't forgotten you, and you're included in all this too. That help is meant for you too. So that centralized point of contact, we had hoped to have a web page up with a phone number and a centralized email communication, and that'll be happening, I think, in the next day or two. The volunteer effort is it's dying down. It needs to be targeted. We need to get into this yard at this time. The people have been overwhelmed up there with so much going on that willy-nilly volunteer efforts are almost unappreciated at this point. And that's not to say that the community didn't respond in such a great way, but we need to target it now. And I'm hoping that this new centralized point of contact that you'll be hearing more about soon will fill that need. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions from council? Okay, any questions from the community? All right, Chuck, thank you so much for everything the CSD has been doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, anything you want to add, Ron? Nope, he just, okay. Chamber of Commerce report. That was good, Ron. That's okay, you're off the hook.
Ron, thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
We have a hero, Mr. Munns.
Thank you, Ron. We appreciate it. Chamber of Commerce report. Jim, let's get you unmuted. Okay.
Am I there?
Yes, you are.
I am on. Okay. Well, the chamber is just trying to get themselves organized at this point. We had our election in December for the new board. Board was installed in January and picked a new president, who is Tom Cross. Think about Tom. He stepped up to take the challenge. And we have our officers, Curtis Armstrong from David Inn is the president-elect. The secretary, Annie Mueller from the Kiwanis Club. The Josh Hunter, local attorney, has stepped up to treasurer, would you believe? So we have about 10 members and we're adding an 11th. We still have an opening. So our next step is the retreat coming up in February, in which we'll organize ourselves for the year ahead, events and activities. Quick notice, we had a ribbon cutting and mixer at the Brightside Pizza Place today. And an overwhelming number of people showed up. It was just marvelous. And Dean Sullivan took a picture of our ribbon cutting. And by the way, Chuck, on the backside of Dean's Cerro Bay News is just a full list of all the stuff and active places there at events. So might be interested in looking at that. Nice job. Okay, so that's I think I have for the chamber.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, let's go to public comment for items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone from the public who would like 3 minutes to discuss anything? Raise your hand. No, okay. Approve minutes from October 2022. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, raise your hand. Perfect. All right. I have Carolyn Hall who raised her hand. I'm not sure if you raised your hand for public comment. Let me ask you to unmute.
Thank you. I apologize. I wasn't actually able to get my hand up in that short.
No worries.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Caroline Hall. I'm the rector at St. Benedict's Episcopal Church and also the president of Los Osos Cares. And I wanted to mention two things. One is that Los Osos Cares has been given a grant by the Community Foundation to help with immediate needs for people who've been affected by the flooding. So that's another resource that hasn't been mentioned yet this evening. And secondly, the community wasn't prepared for anything like this. And I don't know how we go about preparing ourselves better, but it does seem that we need to have some kind of plan, like a central emergency number or something, and some way of moving faster than seems to have been able to happen this time. I don't know. It seems to me that LOCAC would possibly be a place to start that conversation. So I offer that to you as a concern. I'd be happy to be involved if people wanted to have that conversation, but it seems like because we're not incorporated, we don't have a mayor, we don't have a central somebody who is the person. I think that we should set that up for the future.
I think that is a great idea. And I will be happy to call you tomorrow.
Great.
And just see kind of what steps, and maybe we could get a subcommittee together here in the community.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, let's do committee reports. Jim, could we have the treasurer's report?
Sure, we had a beginning balance. I'm sorry, it's on another piece of paper. Here it is. Beginning balance of 1,362.28. We had a deposit of the county's money of 2,040. We had one expense, our strategic planning event, $1,500. We have an ending balance of $1,907.28.
Perfect. Any questions for Jim? All right, land use report. Anything you would like to talk about, Larry?
Oh, he's muted.
Thank you. Larry, I'm asking you to unmute.
There you go.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah, at our last meeting, nothing really came up. We're waiting for some more information on a couple projects. We have one project coming up for our February meeting, which is not too far away. It's a electronic gaming room over by Ralph's, if anyone's interested in putting their 2 cents in. That'll be on the agenda.
What did you say it is?
An arcade.
An
Oh,
arcade.
an arcade.
Arcade, electronic arcade.
Okay.
Rouse?
And their sign is up already.
That's right.
Because I went to Ralph's today, and then when I passed it, it had arcade coming. So
Okay.
Are you a pinball wizard? I got a question for Larry. Larry, what's going on Was there not an item pending regarding the old gas station across from the shopping center?
That was withdrawn.
Okay,
Because it's already been rented. From what I understand, it's being rented to a landscape company,
yeah,
and they're gonna be using it, and you can see all the plants out in front as their office for the landscape business.
okay, great.
Any other questions for Larry? Okay. Trees and landscape, you guys have been busy. Let's hear it.
We'll both talk a little bit, but I wanted to jump in and first of all, say thank you to John and his wife, Margaret. They did a lot of extra work. They got the plants. They just did a lot of work. So John, I really appreciate that. And then certainly a thank you to Rotary of Los Osos, who brought a number of members down. We had a couple of LOCAC members. Deborah was there, and Jim was double dipping for Rotary and for LOCAC. And then county park staff was great too. So it went well. And John, you want to fill in on some other great details?
Well, we had a great Saturday morning. I think maybe in the neighborhood of 15 people showed up to get down on their knees and dig into the dirt. And in a couple hours, we got her done, and you can go by at your leisure and see what the result is. And hopefully it'll look great for Los Osos for a long time coming. And the one insight I got from the encounter was, it would be great to join up with Rotary, which I talked to the president while she was there, and with the Garden Club to do projects together. And I think if we were to coordinate tree planting or landscaping projects around town, it would just be, we just have that much more energy combined and political power to convince the powers that be that, to make room for this kind of stuff. So I'm going to follow up on that.
Great idea. Great idea.
That is great. We're stronger together. That is.
There it is. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on tree and landscaping?
No, I was going to say I had a blast with planting.
You're a hard worker.
With my little, it was fun. And the plants are beautiful.
Yeah.
Jim Stanfield, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to comment that Pandora Nash, she's in charge of Celebrate Los Osos. These things currently doing some of the same kind of stuff. But contact with her would probably be appropriate.
You bet.
Good idea.
Put that down. Outreach. Tom, since Kristen had no internet tonight, could you follow up on our meeting we had last night?
I'll do my best. It was our first meeting. It was, I think, pretty successful. We figured out exactly what Outreach's role with LOCAC should be, and settled on many things. The main thing being just establishing our presence more in the community and what we can do for and with the community. We have a couple projects that we're brainstorming at the moment, and we would love to see more people show up and brainstorm more projects and be willing to be foot soldiers for such projects. Anything I missed?
Let me get my note. No, I think, yeah, we really talked about inform, listen on community issues, connect, seek input, support communities, show up at different community meetings to discuss LOCAC, add LOCAC newsletters to different neighborhoods if they have websites, develop a system to inform the board of supervisors of what LOCAC is doing, because they don't know some of the stuff that we have gotten through, like some of the stuff that Deborah did for the safety assessment for the roads, things like that are not always in our minutes, not that they would necessarily even read our minutes. So I think conversations like that. So that's what I had for my notes that we talked about last night. And I do have my to-do list. So,
I have a question.
yes.
I think last year we talked about possibly going to and being represented as LOCAC at the Oktoberfest. So I just want to put that out there that if the chamber decides to do Oktoberfest this year, we should definitely think about having a table, a presence, even if we share a table with someone else, because a lot of people go to that.
Yes, we have it as part of our plan. I just forgot to mention that.
All right, great.
And yet the chamber is doing outdoor.
Okay, good.
We
will
shall
do
see
it.
about that.
We'll do it.
I am in charge now.
Good. Oh, that's
Yeah.
gonna be a fun
Oh,
festival.
geez.
Okay, water report, Deborah and Larry.
Yeah, Larry's going to do the report tonight.
Yeah, we, since there was no BMC meeting this last month, we thought we'd just kind of mention some totals that we've had with all the rains that we've had and what the reservoirs are doing. So I went online and picked out some of the reservoirs, and right now Santa Margarita Lake, or Salinas Reservoir, is over 100% capacity. Lake Lopez is at 53. Nacimiento is at 86. San Antonio Lake is 37%. Whale Rock's at 89. Cachuma Lake's at 98, surprisingly.
Wow.
Yeah. Nacimiento Lake is actually the largest volume lake, which I was surprised. I thought San Antonio Lake was pretty big. It is actually pretty big compared to some of our others. Rainfall, and these are rainfall totals from July 1st, so it's for the whole season so far. Santa Margarita is at like 31 inches, 31 and a half, which is like 130% of normal. Lake Lopez is at 28.6, about 140% of normal. Lake Nacimiento is at 11.9, San Antonio 13.8. I could not find anything for Whale Rock. Cachuma Lake 21 inches, Los Osos landfill 22. So our normal, our average is around 17, so we're well above normal so far. Rocky Butte 61 inches.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Where is that?
I think
San Simeon.
that's
It's
San
kind-
Simeon at the very top of the mountain up there.
It's kind of behind Hearst Castle.
Yeah.
My God.
They
Great.
always
It's,
have the most rain.
Yeah, they always get double.
it's got a unique weather thing that happens there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
61 inches. That's, I can just imagine the water coming down those roads up there, San Simeon Road. Camp San Luis, 26, almost 27 inches, and San Simeon about 20 inches. I don't have their averages, so that's kind of a summary of what the water situation is this year so far, and looks like we're going to get some more here pretty soon.
Sunday.
Wow.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Deborah, active transportation.
Yeah, we had a short meeting. We didn't have a lot to talk about. We are anxiously waiting for the UC Berkeley team to contact us about our Safe Trek safety assessment. They said they would reach out to us the first part of January, but it hasn't happened. I have sent some emails and they said, oh, well, we're getting organized. So as soon as I hear from them, I'll know more about, how we're going to go about doing the assessment. I think the first few meetings are all on Zoom and they talk to stakeholders. And then at a certain point, they will come and do a location visit. And then someone, let's see, who was it? Maybe it was Chuck. Somebody mentioned about the climate adaptation for South Bay Boulevard. LOCAC has put together a group of stakeholders to look at how we can improve South Bay Boulevard. not just with rain like we've had, but also with the rising tides. So I'm fortunate enough to be a part of that group and representing Los Osos. So more on that later, as they're really looking to get some money, grant money, to do a study. It all starts with a study. And then from there, obviously make a plan and design and engineer and all of those things. So we're barely getting started, but exciting, very exciting to think about. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. As far as agenda items, land use didn't have any consent or regular. So moving down to business items, there's only one thing that during our executive session, we didn't have time to do. So I thought since we didn't have any agenda items, it might be a perfect time to talk about it. What I would like to discuss and open up for everybody is on how we approach new projects. So I would like to kind of change our focus so that to see if we can review the projects. Like, let's say it's a vacation rental project. So let's just look at it and say, okay, this project meets the criteria, you know, is 500 feet away from something else. It has the parking, so that we go to the specifics. And I sent everybody a copy of my draft of looking at all of the regulations and put them in an Excel spreadsheet. So we know, you know, what a guest house has to have, what a vacation rental has to have, what everything, you know, a new store has to have. So I would like to see if we can go back to looking at the actual project versus just concentrating on water issues and saying no, because we're being asked to advise them on a project. And I would like to be able to say, let's look at the project itself. You know, one way we can do it is do a disclaimer saying until the Title 19 retrofit is done and until the Coastal Commission and the county discuss what we can and cannot have, you know, this, we can do a disclaimer. So I want to bring it out to the rest of the group, because the concern I have is that my perception, going back to my old administrative days, my perception is we're being looked at as, why should we even bring something to land use or LOCAC if you're automatically going to say, we're not going to vote on it, we're not going to move it forward, we're not going to do anything. So that's my piece. Any comments, questions, concerns? Anybody? Okay, let me unmute you, Larry.
Being on land use, we've talked about lots of projects.
Okay.
And we haven't gone with the thing, just know. We've always discussed all the benefits. In fact, we point out when somebody goes above and beyond in a housing project, you know, that they've gone above and beyond water saving, you know, and we do point that out, and we just have, you know, we always forward the project on as we have a difficult time supporting a project that adds new water use. Vacation rentals don't add new water use. It's just a different thing. So I think there's a misconception that all projects are automatically denied because they use water.
But they, I mean, for the last year they have. So let's say someone wants to add a bathroom, it's going to be denied because it uses water. Someone wants to, you know, for a caretaker or something. I mean, but all of our projects have been denied due to water. And I mean, there should be some way that we can say, this is a great project. It uses great water. It does this, it does all of the stuff that it needs to do. We approve the concept, we approve, you know, it meets all of the parameters. We approve it that way. and then do a disclaimer that maybe we still have a concern. Is that me?
I
Is
heard a
that me
background noise.
squeaking?
I don't know.
The echoes from Larry's microphone.
Okay.
Are my dogs chewing away
No,
here?
no, you're fine. So I don't know. I would just like to get some more opinions on this.
I agree with you because I don't see it as that way, but I would like to have some feedback also if other people see it that way.
Deborah?
All right, so I want to see if I understand what you're trying to say. That a discussion of the project on its merits and that, okay, this is how I'm interpreting what you're saying, that when it comes to water, it's the CSD or the water purveyor or the county or the coastal commission that really is the one who they will make the decision about the water, and that we should defer to them and
Right.
just comment on what is the project, does it fit within the requirements and the parameters and, you know, aesthetically the things that we want to see in Los Osos, and to leave the water piece out. Is that what I'm
That's
hearing?
exactly what I'm trying to say.
That's what I thought you were trying to say.
Incorrectly, but that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so in other words, it's not our position to take a position, but just let's look at the project. And then once we get the Title 19 and the Coastal Commission and the county, all of they work out their reconciliation, whatever that may be, then we have a position to take. Right now, I feel that way. I feel like we can't really even take a position because there are a lot of things that are still being worked out that are quite specific to water.
Well, the Coastal Commission has pretty much said they don't care about Title 19. They don't even agree with it. So I'm not sure, even if the Madeas report comes out with something, well, we'll see how well it proves it. But at this point, I think it's a good warning to people submitting these projects that it will probably get denied, so we shouldn't just ignore the water situation.
Can we make a letter that defines our position relative to the water and focus just on the water before we go through the process, or after we gone through the process, looked at the project and it's in parts and so on and so forth, make a determination based on that information and make a recommendation, and then slap this letter on it that says we do have concern about the water situation.
Right, but I think I'm with you, Jim. I think there's two pieces to it. I think if the approval of the project needs to come first.
Right.
And then whatever you want to call it, a disclaimer or whatever, would be the second piece to it. Deborah?
Well, I just want to tag on to what Larry's saying. What I think Larry's saying is that we should warn people that their project could get denied at this other level, and that it's just because they come to LOCAC and we say, oh, we think this is a really nice project, that doesn't mean that it's going to get them anywhere at the end of the day. And I think that could be in a letter, Jim, so that it's like, we have these concerns and your project might be denied by these other agencies, which is totally out of our purview.
And
so
that alerts people. That's what you're saying.
Right.
Alerts people, as you're saying, to let them know that it's, even though we approve it, very well could be disapproved down the line.
Patrick has.
Aren't we already kind of doing that though? I mean, I know we've taken votes on whether or not we're going to recommend a project moving forward, or recommend the project. It seems like we're already really doing that. And it feels like to me, if a project, and I've got a very basic understanding of the water situation, but certainly not to the extent of some of the rest of you. But it seems to me like if it is a new water situation, it's not, you know, it makes no, I don't know. I think that's a big deal. So it gets very odd to me as well. And I'm not saying that we've done this, but getting into a almost like a beauty contest if we really like all these other aspects of the project, but it still uses new water. I mean, that doesn't, to me, it's kind of black and white. It's either new water or it's not. I mean, maybe a letter would work. I think we don't want to give false hope. I know none of us want to do that. So, yeah. And I know Patrick's had his hand up for a while.
Thank
Patrick?
you. Thank you. Well, I'd just like to point out, which I have several times before, that DWR has stated, made it very clear to us that our basin is an overdraft. Coastal Commission has stated that they don't believe we have enough potable water for the community that is here right now. The county has given us a level 3 severity, which is the highest level that we can go. The water purveyors have expressed their concern over the amount of water that we have. And the meeting that we had not too long ago, Chuck Sasena talked at it, and we had a lot of community members there, and they all expressed their concern about our water situation. So to ignore that, I think it is at our own folly.
And I'm not saying to ignore the water. I'm just saying that I think there's two pieces to approving a project. Because when they come to LOCAC, what we're hearing is that land use has said no. They voted no.
Okay, let me just finish off here, please, Trish. I have watched what we have done at land use, and I've watched what the county has done. So, and what LOCAC has done. Regardless of the recommendations that we make to the county, it has not made one bit of difference. What happens is the projects then go to the hearing officer. The hearing officer has approved pretty much every one of them. And then some of those will get appealed. And so those go then appealed to the Board of Supervisors, which then if they approve it, which they have, because they have a different view of what the Coastal Commission views our water situation as, then it gets appealed to the Coastal Commission. The Coastal Commission will appeal a lot of projects just on their own if they don't get appealed previously by another group or agency. So what we do has really made no difference at all. But we are here to support the community, not necessarily individuals. And the community has a great concern over our water issues. So I think expressing those and not approving projects that are going to be using new water is what we are supposed to be doing. And that's what we've done, though it makes no difference at all when it gets to the county level. I'm done.
Any other council members?
I'd like us to continue to weigh in on water issues because I think the picture changes. We just got dumped on with rain and we had no water before. Things changed. DWR was giving 5% to contractors just 2 weeks ago. They just upped it to 30%. Things change. Now we're going to get more information about water in the lifetime of our service with LOCAC. We need to be open to new information and to be able to judge for ourselves what advice will be given. So I don't want to lock myself into a no position. I want to be open to information about water. I pointed out I'd like to look at diverse sources of water for Los Osos. And so I'd like us just to be open on the issue of water and not close the door.
Thank you, John. Tom?
All right, to start, I want to make it very clear that I'm pretty confident that everyone on this council is incredibly concerned about the water and very cognizant of the strong possibility, if not certainty, of there not being enough water. But there is a line between protecting the water source and protecting our community. There comes a point where we just deny so much for the sake of the water that we're strangling our community and doing more harm than good. And so I just want to emphasize again, the water issue is very much on the forefront of everyone's minds, but there has to be some way to accommodate our community besides just strangling anyone's ability to improve. That is all I have to say on that.
Okay, Deborah.
So I like this discussion. I think this is a very important discussion. And whenever you have a discussion like that, it really means you have to start defining your terms. I've heard now new water from several of you, and I would like to know, what does that mean, new water? Because if you're down in Baywood, your water gets recycled into the wastewater treatment plant and it comes back in. If you are using Title 19, whatever that might be, the current is 2-to-1, it might change to something else. You are offsetting your water use and actually creating water neutral at the least, or perhaps even water savings. So understanding what new water means, I think, is very important. Defining it for us so that we're all talking about the same thing is very important. Adding a toilet or a sink into a home does not create new water. It's really about people. We discussed that last time too. So, and I think this is where Tom's making his point of, if we start denying people to live here, then we are kind of strangling our community. For me, my position has developed because I had an emotional reaction to people who would come with their dreams. And we said, we love your dream. We think it's a great dream, but we're going to deny you because of this thing over here. And it was very hard for them to accept that. They are also part of our community. We also represent those people. And so it was very hard for me to feel like, well, I have to represent you, but I'm going to deny you based on this thing, which is not clearly defined. So not that I'm trying to confuse anybody, but if we're going to have a water discussion and if we're really going to make decisions, then we need to define our terms, and we need to, and for me personally, I need to be in a less emotional place, because it was actually quite excruciating to see these people come forward and for us to deny their projects based on something that I didn't feel was quite as valid as it was being put forward.
Larry. Oops, Larry, I think you're muted again. Here. Ask to unmute.
There we go.
There you go.
I'd like to address two things, Tom, your thing of that this ruins our little town here and stuff. They've been saying for 30 years now, without any growth in our town, we're gonna wither away to nothing. Well, Los Osos has survived 35 years, prospered, done, kids have gone to college, everything. Families have moved in, families have moved out. It has not destroyed our little community, what has been going on.
Before you continue, may I just rephrase? I specifically didn't say growth, I said improvement.
Whichever it is, improvement or growth or whatever, we have a very vibrant community here. Whether you can build a house or add a bathroom or not does not make the difference. And then Deborah on, the new water use and stuff, again, being here probably not as long as me. Oh God, how many houses have I seen? When I first moved here, they were building rooms in the garages. They were converting all the garages because it was so expensive to live here. The only way you could afford to live here is build something in your garage. um, having people's dreams. There are people who've had dreams that own property here in Los Osos for 30 years that have not been able to build their house. You know, so new people that come in, you know, the last couple of years, you want to say that you've had a tough time, you know, you feel sorry for them. Well, there's been people for 30 years waiting to build their dream house here and their things. They knew it back then, they know it now. Nobody has told them they can't do it. We're just asking them to put it off until we have an established water source. That's all. Nobody's saying you can't build. We don't want you here. We don't want new water use. Nobody's saying
Then
that.
should we even hear these projects?
I think we should, you know, and they should know what the concerns of the community is. That's what LOCAC is for. You know, we don't make policies, we don't make rules and laws or anything. We are here to give the concerns of the community. You know, and then it's up to the supervisors and county planning and the coastal commission to decide what to do with it. But it has our input, you know, the voice of the community is all we can do. We can't tell them they can't build a house. We never said you can't build a house. We said we have concerns of water. And once the water thing is fine, if we get a desal plant, there might be tons of water. You know, there's a bunch of other things they're trying to get water. You know, soon as we get it, and there's an abundance of water for new development and stuff, that's fine. But until that happens, there is a group, not everyone in Los Osos feels this way, but there are a group of people that are concerned about our water supply. And it's written in all the plans and everything that, you know, there should be concerns of our water supply, and that maybe things shouldn't be developed and built and added on to, you know, until it's proven we have a stable water supply.
And Trish, to answer your question about should we be listening to those things, I totally agree with Larry. If the county is going to still be approving all these things, which the county actually shouldn't be, the Coastal Commission has told them not to. But seeing as that they're not listening to the Coastal Commission at this time and still approving, yes, that's what land use is supposed to do. So land use is making recommendations to LOCAC that we feel represents the community's concerns. LOCAC can go ahead and then vote on whatever they want to also. But land use is the one that vets these things, that talks to people, that where the community comes and talks to them, you know, at the meetings, and then we pass that on to LOCAC. And Tom, when you mentioned that, you know, supporting water or supporting the community, it is the same thing. Supporting our water supply is supporting our community. If we do not have a water supply, we do not have a community. And Deborah, your mention about Title 19, about offsets and everything like, there's been no studies at all that have shown that Title 19 has worked or is working at all. And that's why they're revamping it right now. That is why the Coastal Commission doesn't even look at it. So I think, as we're saying, you know,
we're trying to have a very peaceful conversation. So let's bring it down, Patrick. We're not trying to get agitated at people or calling people out. This is a time to just open up, say what you feel. We're not chastising anyone tonight.
Well, I hope not. So I am just trying to make it clear. People have made statements. I don't want those statements to go unquestioned if they don't really give a good out view of what
they're allowed to give their statements, Patrick, because that's how they feel.
Yes,
so they don't have to feel like you, Patrick. They can feel any way they choose.
Thank you, Trish. I do appreciate that. And I totally agree with that also. And I am just making my views known also, which represents a lot of the community. So let's listen to what the community has to say.
Okay, first, we're going to finish with council. Tom?
I got a lot of thoughts that got lost in the conversation. I think it was a lot of good concerns. When I say like we're choosing between like the water source and the community, what's the point of water source if we can't use it? If the people who are living here aren't trusted enough to like responsibly use it for their own uses? It feels like oftentimes land use assumes that there's going to be an increase in water use based on a presumption of what the possibility of future residents could do instead of what applicants say they are going to do. And I don't think that's fair to this community or those applicants. And again, I want to emphasize the water issue is very well known and is a big concern to, I'm willing to bet, the majority of Los Osos. It's just, to what extent do we need to be overprotective or accommodated?
Okay. Very well spoken. Larry Rayo.
Yeah, I think that all projects should be brought to the land use committee, and they should be judged on basically what the project is, you know. I think we made it clear that if it's just a bathroom, you know, it's not an added water use and this and that. Every project is going to be viewed on their own. And if you look at how long the community plan is taken for the county and the coastal commission to come together on this, it's because of the water issue. It's not an easy issue. And if they can't even get together and figure it out, you know, I don't think we should be necessarily ignoring it also, you know. And I would have to say that if I was voting on something, I can't ignore the water issue when I vote on it.
That's great. All right, any other?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, you know, there are efforts that everybody knows about to bring more water to Los Osos. And Ron Munz is at the head of the line on those efforts. And they include connecting our community, which is totally dependent on groundwater, to other areas of the county that all share water in reservoirs, and a state water system that brings water to a lot of communities that doesn't bring any here. But there are efforts underway that are not that far away that could bear fruit. And there are other diverse ways to get water that need to be talked about in terms of the long range. Tomorrow, you know, it's not going to happen quickly, but it's going to happen faster than you think. If I think there's efforts to site a small desal plant off of the Central Coast that could also bring water into Los Osos and Morro Bay. And there's discussions between Morro Bay and Los Osos to share that water. So there's several alternatives that we should not forget about.
Thank you. Deborah?
Thanks. So this is such an important discussion and probably not the last discussion we'll have on this, but one of the things, and I think Tom was really focusing on this, and it's an area that I agree with him, is that we become hyper-focused on what people use for themselves as residents of Los Osos, or a business uses it as part of their business. And having been doing some, you know, on the water committee for a year now, a little more than a year, we know that our population has stayed virtually the same for the last 10 years, according to the census, but our water usage has gone down. The use of in a home of a toilet or a bathroom or adding a room or whatever is almost insignificant when you look at the amount of water that's used for outdoor watering. 30% of what residents use of their water that's coming out of the aquifer is going into their yards. And we're going to do, we're in the middle of a grand experiment here, because for the month of December and January, I could pretty much guarantee you not one single person has watered their lawn or their plants. And I'm going to get you statistics from the water purveyors that will show how much water was not used because of that. So if you really want to make an impact on the aquifer, let's look at the place where we can make a real difference. And it's by reducing the amount of water that's used outside, because that's lots of water compared to the amount of water that people use inside. And that's my feeling. That's where I think that we should come together about our concern about the aquifer, and we can actually make a significant difference in the aquifer. That's my hope.
Thank you. Any other council members? And then we'll open it to community. Okay, Lindy, you're up. I've asked you to unmute.
Hi,
There you
everyone.
How you feeling, Lindy?
I feel kind of crappy again tonight, but I've had COVID since last Friday, so
Sorry.
anyway, I'm it's like a bad cold, nothing worse. So lots of discussion going on. I wanted to kind of bring it back to the beginning issue, which is when a permit comes before land use, we look at it and we discuss it. And most of our concerns are that it's going to impact water use in the future. But I think we also look at the other things, like this should have a setback. I've been on land use for many years and watched many projects that got improved by input from the community. And I think at the end, we've always said, to me, it's always been, this would be a great project in good conditions. We don't have good conditions right now. Therefore, we can approve the project, but we cannot approve it going forward under these conditions. And the idea, as Trish said, to have the letter that explains that we can't support any projects right now, though this one gets its merits from how we reviewed it in perfect conditions. 25 years ago when nobody cared about water, and I have a huge concern about our basin. I think it's like a bank account, and we keep thinking we're going to go ahead and, save a little bit here, and it's going to improve. It doesn't mean that the farmers, the private wells, and other activities are not going to draw all the water that we save. In other words, if you keep adding new uses, you're guaranteed that you're going to not keep the basin at a sustainable point. So all of those projects to bring water in are 10 years away minimum. They're going to be expensive. We need to live within our means. And I think the projects that we look at, we can put in our intent. There's also other issues about projects, the merits of the project. Is it taking up too much of the parking? We catch things that the county doesn't catch in some ways. And a lot of the, projects got better, I think, because of some of our input. I think that it's gotten very messy over the last 6 months. Some of these heartbreaking stories of, we just want to build our first home. That's where we forget that we're just there to approve the project when there is a good water supply. We have things like a bathroom. I don't know how much control we have over bathrooms. And then don't forget how many projects, probably double the projects that are getting brought to the Coastal Commission eventually for approval, they're ministerial. We don't even see them. You might catch them if you drive by and then you check the address and find out it was approved. The county didn't even think we needed to look at it. Like a garage converted into a guest house on Napomo. Anyway, I'm going on, but I think that we need to not be emotional about it. This isn't personal about whose project it was and how hard they tried to get it. And And the county's a lot at fault. They should be starting people off on the right foot, telling them, it's going to be a big fight because we don't have water sustainability. And
Thank you, Lindy.
we talked about that before too. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Dave and Bev, asking you to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, it's Dave Bolus. I just wanted to say, as a longtime attendee at land use meetings, the purpose of the place is to hear the description of somebody's project and to contribute in many ways, or to comment in many ways, just as Lindy has mentioned. But it seems to me that it's odd that the Los Osos Community Advisory Council would be kicking the water issues up to Sacramento or to the Coastal Commission and not sticking up for the existing residents. And that's the whole idea, I believe, of having LOCAC, is that it sticks up for the existing residents, who are the ones who are going to need to have water here. And maybe those projects to improve things and to bring more water in will be successful. But as Lindy said, they're not imminent. And there's a lot of debate about exactly what's going on down there and how that pile of water is doing up there at the top of Binscar. So for the time being, I think the Land Use Committee is doing just exactly what it ought to be doing, and that is passing on people's projects on the basis of the need for a reliable source of water for the community. That's all I've got to add.
Thank you. Sandra, you're up. Asked to unmute.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to add, I think all the projects should be looked at, and I'm happy to hear that, adding a bathroom or a sink to make it more comfortable for a family is important to consider. And I would I just would also encourage LOCAC to always look at who's developing and where, because a lot of the developments that or proposals that come through are for Cabrillo Estates, as we know, because the lower, numbered streets have been carved out. And I think that will strangle out the community in Los Osos of who can afford to build and buy and where. And so I just would continually hope that you're asking those questions of who gets to build and where, and how can that shift, or how can we prioritize, or how can we equalize those projects as they come through so that it is more affordable, whether it's apartments or condos or what gets developed, right? So families can continue to be here and not pushed out. We're looking at it from that perspective as well.
That was great. Thank you. Any other community or council? No? Okay. Then thank you for the discussion, and we can adjourn at 8:48.
Thank you.
How's that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.